head out on an overseas business venture representing a burgeoning shoe company that was making waves in the industry. He was slated to deliver a series of presentations that could determine the company's international market positioning for the next year. The night before his departure, as Kyle was meticulously going over his presentation notes, his phone buzzed to life. It was Janet. "Hey, Kyle," she began hesitantly. "I know this is really last minute and you have your trip tomorrow, but could we possibly squeeze in another driving session?" Kyle sighed internally. He knew the importance of his upcoming journey, but he also remembered how terrified Janet was behind the wheel when they first started. Her progress was significant, but she still lacked the confidence to drive solo. It would have to be early in the morning. I mean really early, when the streets are almost empty. "Do you think you can manage that?" Kyle offered. Janet's voice perked up, a hint of hope seeping in. "Oh, Kyle, I would really appreciate it. I promise to be on time. I won't keep you long. Just a quick session to boost my confidence." As Kyle hung up, he adjusted his alarm to wake him up a little earlier. It would be a long day, but he found solace in the fact that he was making a difference in someone's life, even in the smallest of ways. At 65, Janet felt an unfamiliar flutter of excitement and apprehension in her chest. She had made up her mind. It was high time she learned to drive. Today marked her 7th driving lesson with Kyle. For nearly 45 years, Janet had been an unwavering fixture at the local dairy farm. The scent of fresh hay, the sound of mooing cows, and the rhythm of daily chores had become second nature to her. Every day, she'd board the company bus, watching the pastures blend into the town, and then her quaint home. It was at this very dairy farm that she had met John, her pillar of strength and love for all these years. John, with his broad shoulders and twinkling eyes, operated the forklift. When they had exchanged wedding vows, they owned just one rusty car, its paint chipping but engine roaring strong. To Janet, learning to drive then seemed like an unnecessary luxury. Besides, John always enjoyed being behind the wheel, ferrying them to picnics, family gatherings, or just spontaneous midnight drives. Their children came along, filling their lives with laughter, chaos, and a myriad of responsibilities. John seamlessly took on the role of the family chauffeur. The world seemed to come to a shattering halt for Janet when John suddenly succumbed to a stroke at the age of 70. For all the years they had been together, she had never needed to drive. Now, without him, the world felt expansive and daunting. Although her loving children offered assistance, Janet was keenly aware of their own busy lives and responsibilities. She felt it wasn't fair to constantly lean on them. It was during these moments of reflection that she made the resolve to conquer her apprehension and learn to drive. After several weeks of instruction, Janet had managed to pass all her exams, and the day she held her brand new driver's license in her hand was one filled with a mix of pride and trepidation. Among the various individuals Janet had approached to accompany her during her driving endeavors, Kyle stood out as the most compassionate and patient. Previous attempts with her children had left her frazzled and more anxious than she had started. "Mom, it's just the blinkers," her daughter had exclaimed in exasperation during one lesson, throwing her hands up. "How can you keep forgetting that?" "I'm trying, dear," Janet had replied, her voice trembling, fighting back tears of frustration. "It's not as easy for me as it is for you." And that's where Kyle made all the difference. With a calm demeanor and encouraging words, he turned every mistake into a teachable moment. "Oh, Janet," he'd laugh after one such blunder, his eyes twinkling with mirth. "That's the accelerator, not the brake. But don't worry, we all mix them up at first." She would respond with a sheepish grin, her anxiety melting away. "Oh dear, I guess I have a long way to go, don't I?" As their lessons progressed, the confines of the car transformed into a space where stories flowed freely. Kyle's genuine interest in her tales of a bygone era and his own anecdotes from a world she was only just beginning to understand bridged the generation gap effortlessly. Their driving sessions morphed into cherished moments, a blend of instruction and shared stories, connecting past and present. The bond between Janet and Kyle was palpable. She came to regard him with the same warmth and affection reserved for her son. Their relationship was not the one that could be boxed into conventional terms, especially considering their unique connection. Astoundingly, Kyle was Janet's former son-in-law. Janet often marveled at the turn of events. Life has a curious way of weaving stories, she would muse, recalling the time when Kyle was married to her daughter Sheila. Kyle and Sheila had woven a tapestry of memories over 4 years of marriage. However, like many stories, theirs was not without its twists and turns. In the initial days, like many budding relationships, everything seemed picture perfect. Sheila was a radiant young woman who turned heads wherever she went. Many were captivated by her charm, her beauty making her the envy of many and the desire of others. Yet, as time went on, it became evident that while Sheila was undeniably beautiful, she often lacked the foresight and wisdom that life's challenges demanded. Kyle, with his chiseled features, next to Sheila, they made a striking pair, often eliciting admiring glances from onlookers. After tying the knot, Kyle and Sheila settled into a cozy apartment of their own. But the bond between Kyle and Sheila's family, especially Janet, was profound. Despite having a new home to manage, Kyle never let the distance interfere with his relationship with his mother-in-law. At least once a week, he would make it a point to visit Janet's home. But these visits weren't mere formalities. With rolled-up sleeves and a ready smile, Kyle would dive into any task that needed doing. Whether it was fixing a leaky faucet, tending to the garden, or even helping with the grocery shopping, Kyle was always on hand, eager to lend his support. Janet was blessed with 2 children, Sheila and Gus. While Sheila had always been close to home, Gus had charted his own course, settling in a different state. The geographical distance, however, never distanced him from the family's bond. When it came time for Gus and his family to relocate to a new home, Kyle didn't think twice. Recognizing the enormity of the task ahead, he promptly took a few days off work to be of assistance. Kyle exuded a quiet, unassuming charm. In an age where pretense and facade were common, his genuineness was a refreshing change. He wasn't one for grand gestures or ostentatious displays. Instead, he valued authenticity and the beauty of simple, heartfelt interactions. By the close of their second year together, a shadow had begun to cast itself over Kyle and Sheila's once blissful union. To the outside world, they were the epitome of marital happiness, always arm in arm, sharing laughter, and seemingly in sync. But behind the closed doors of their home, a palpable tension was building. At the heart of their troubles was an unspoken longing, the desire to start a family. Sheila, in particular, found herself grappling with a profound internal conflict. With each passing day, she oscillated between the hope of cradling a child in her arms and the thought of ending the marriage that was, in her eyes, remaining unfulfilled. Initially, the couple had approached the subject of children with an easygoing optimism, but as months turned into years, without the pitter-patter of tiny feet, their initial carefreeness transformed into growing concern. The discovery that Kyle was sterile was a devastating revelation for the couple. The reality that there was no medical solution to their issue hit them hard, but the emotional impacts varied vastly between them. For Kyle, while the news was undoubtedly painful, he found a way to cope and continue to be his resilient self. One evening, sitting on their patio under the dim glow of the string lights, he murmured, "There are many ways to build a family, Sheila. We'll find ours." But for Sheila, the news was soul-crushing. The dream she had harbored of one day holding a baby, their baby, seemed to shatter. She often found herself lost in thought, envisioning the echoes of giggles and the joy of first steps that might never be. "I always imagined our child, Kyle," she confided one particularly hard night, her voice breaking. "I imagined them having your eyes, your smile. And now—" Kyle held her close, his own heart heavy with shared grief. "We'll find a way," he whispered, though the path forward was clouded with uncertainty. As the initial shock began to subside, Kyle, ever the problem solver, started exploring alternative paths to parenthood. He immersed himself in research, seeking out every possible avenue from adoption to surrogacy. Each time he stumbled upon a potential solution, his heart swelled with hope, eager to share it with Sheila. One evening, after hours of scouring articles and forums, Kyle approached Sheila with a folder brimming with information.